There was a time not so long ago when Hindi film industry was the most celebrated establishment of the nation. It was desirable, relevant, and certainly profitable. One could easily find its reference everywhere. Bollywood was the sole benefactor to pop culture for the entire subcontinent. With an active audience of almost 2 billion people, Hindi film industry was a juggernaut. It was the envy of the angels. But then, what goes up must come down. Things went south for Bollywood. In a snap, things literally went south. And shit hit the fan when the industry went from being the most sought after in the business to a lifelong supply of memes. Clear signs of saturation, lack of vision and effort, same old repetitive tropes and poor content. Bollywood has turned into a parody of itself and films look like spoof. But what actually went wrong? And why did a celebrated industry suffer such a terrible plight? Let's talk about it in this video. Okay, let's rewind a couple of years in time to 2007, when the industry was arguably at a good space, showing positive signs of growth in all spheres, be it in terms of quality or commercial viability. The rate of success was considerably high, and films at least had an impact if not anything else. The content was progressive and it definitely had variety. Films from different genres were performing well, and Bollywood was almost invincible. Fast forward to present day, there is a stark difference in the picture. There could be a million reasons behind this, but my pea-sized brain could only come up with 5. Reason number 1 is a no-brainer: the content. That is dwindling into darkness following a downward trajectory. It is mostly unoriginal, repetitive, formula-based, money-driven, fueled by impractical aspirations. And things are not gonna end anytime soon because there is a big backlog of content courtesy the pandemic. A lot of projects are still in the pipeline and it's gonna be a long wait until this cycle ends. Commerce plays a crucial role in every industry, especially in the case of the film industry, where things can be uncertain. But the problem with Bollywood is its undivided focus on the business part exclusively, and its insatiable lust for commercial success and validation. And you cannot really put a blame on someone because the environment or the setup has shaped itself in that way over the years. If you take a look at the evaluation of films in our country, you'll notice that the parameters of rating a film is based on big numbers. Box office figures, ticket sales, profits generated by selling satellite and digital rights. Wherever they spot the slightest opportunity that can be cashed, they start chasing it and copying it, rip it off completely with the hope of replicating that success. If it has worked for someone, it should work out again. But in reality, you cannot anticipate the pulse of the audience with a formula because people themselves are not really sure about what they want. But the bottom line is, the content has not evolved. Nobody wants to move out of their comfort zone or take risk, and they have completely disregarded their strength. Example, romantic comedies were one of the most successful genres of Hindi cinema, but sadly, they don't make them anymore. Rom-coms are officially dead. The affinity for nurturing good content or putting in some real effort to develop good content is missing big time. The second reason is execution. In 130 years long history of cinema, filmmakers have experimented with all the elementary themes of a story, as all stories can be traced back to 7 basic plot lines or archetypes. So all that matters now is how you are presenting this story, the people who are going to be involved in the project and what are they bringing to the table. And you're going to call for the doom if you go horribly wrong with the basics: bizarre casting, unnecessary additions to the story, and poor handling of the material or treatment of the plot can all lead to a film that falls flat. In an industry where films are often compared to others and draw inspiration from what has come before, if you have noticed, the point of reference of most films is not the real world, but films that have been made before. Yes, it can be tempting to follow certain formulas or tropes in an attempt to replicate past success, but relying too heavily on these can result in stereotypical, forced, and unconvincing stories that lack originality and fail to engage the audience. Then you have the competition. Bollywood has enjoyed an absolute monopoly for the longest time, and nobody was even close, simply because there was no solid alternative. People across the subcontinent were familiar with the language, and Hindi films had this phenomenal reach and outstanding distribution. Eventually new mediums emerged. There was TV, then internet, then OTT, and viewers too evolved with time. Then the pandemic accelerated things at the speed of lightning. There is this famous quote by Bong Joon-ho. He mentions that once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films. And that is exactly what happened. People actually took the plunge of exploring and consuming content from across the world, and the shortcomings of Hindi content was exposed. Now we might have unlimited options, but there are only 24 hours in a day, and it ultimately comes down to winning the click. Quality and value addition are the only things that people care about. So currently there's a big buzz around the South Indian film industry. It is collectively being pitched as the next big thing. But this incredible feat was not achieved overnight. Things started way back, right here. They could sense the opportunity that there is a big audience hungry for content, so they started building their base from the ground up, pumped in more content and generalized the concept of watching dubbed movies. This was indeed a great strategy, and filmmakers from all over the world have realized this, and they are dubbing their content into multiple languages to penetrate different markets. Now with all these options that people have at their disposal, you've got to be at your competitive best to keep up with the standards of the content that you'll be pitted against. And remakes are a big no. It doesn't matter if you're bumping up the scale 100 times or creating some next level visual masterpiece. 9 out of 10 times people will not prefer watching remakes. And we have already seen that in the recent past. Remakes do sound safe and lucrative, but they're gonna shrink the market size in the long run. Now let's talk about the makers. Whether things are gonna improve or the ship is gonna sink from this point, it is the makers who run the show. It's the makers who decide what's gonna go on floor and what's gonna be shelved. Let me share something. Brahmastra was probably the most awaited film of the year. The scale, the cast and all that hype, it could even get the dead excited. Just on the brink of its release, they started dropping videos on YouTube, where director Ayan Mukherjee talks about the process and his experience of making the film. So there's a moment in one of these videos where he mentions that he was 29 when he started working on the film, and currently when the film is about to hit the screens, he is 39. And that really hit hard. This man has spent the most precious years of his youth working on this project. A part of me was almost convinced that this is gonna be one hell of a movie. But then, it was hell, for real.
दोस्तों पिक्चर देखने गए थे ब्रह्मास्त्र 3D वाला, इतना दर्दनाक पिक्चर बना दिए हैं बॉलीवुड वाले कि क्या ही बताएं। साला 2 घंटा ध्यान से पिक्चर देखे हैं लेकिन कुछ समझ में नहीं आया कि स्टोरी क्या है।
Then it got me thinking like 10 years and 400 crores and all that hype for this?
कौन हो तुम?
तेरी अम्मा ने भूत की मेहंदी रचाई थी ना, वही भूत हूँ मैं।
It really lacked intent and conviction. All that pomp and show might look or feel good, but enhancing the film with big money, reverse engineering the entire process, doing everything from an out-and-out business perspective is gonna land you nowhere, and the content will suffer 100%. Need of the hour is to be more intentional about making films and quit unnecessary malicious practices and stop chasing numbers. Filmmakers need to rework a few things like budget, salaries, and allocation of resources. Keeping a few big players from south aside, Bollywood has the best opportunities in terms of budget and resources. Other regional industries do not even have a fraction of that budget, yet they try their best to deliver with conviction. The least they can do is bring the right talent on board and give them the freedom and trust to express their craft. By giving credit where it's due and fostering a collaborative environment where people are motivated to deliver top quality cinema. And finally, audience too have a significant role. Because a film is only as good as its audience, what is going to be produced depends upon what is being consumed at the moment. Hindi film audience is fickle-minded and have a comparatively low attention span, who primarily seek entertainment and escape out of films. And it is a two-way traffic. People started making a specific kind of films for a certain section of the audience, which kickstarted a huge business. So they decided to make more of these films, which brought in even more money, which created this one big empire. This has turned into a vicious cycle that keeps going on. Let's talk about a practical example. Bhool Bhulaiya 2 was one of the most successful outings of 2022. The film was definitely entertaining. It was nowhere close to its predecessor. The first installment was on a different level altogether. Everything about that film was on point. Even after 15 years, memories are still fresh in the minds of people. Will the same be said about its sequel 15 years down the road? I doubt. The only thing that people might remember is the fact that this film had 6 different versions of the same song. Entertainment or escape is good for the business or quick money, but these films will not have the value or impact in the long run. When these films generate big numbers, It sends out a different message to the filmmakers, so they'll keep making more of these films and shelve rest of everything else. When people are open to diverse types of cinema, filmmakers are encouraged to invest in a wider range of projects and stories. They can focus on creating quality content, knowing that it will be appreciated and rewarded by the audience. A more inclusive and accepting audience leads to a dynamic and interesting film industry. So what is the conclusion? Is it really game over for Bollywood? No. Not really, and it's not gonna be over till the Hindi-speaking audience exists. But it is high time Bollywood needs to get its act together. We can see that Pathaan is breaking new records every day, and that is a positive sign for sure. But there are things that you must take into consideration. The star value attached with the film SRK's comeback, and the entire spy universe concept. But most importantly, you cannot predict a lot from one film's success. One film cannot change the scene. Multiple films need to work and work consistently to make a difference. Otherwise, the industry will exist till the audience exists, and nothing can write that off. Though there could be a situation of an alternative industry that could mushroom far away from the current Bombay setup or the Bollywood setup. And it's not a far-fetched idea. This has happened before. Bollywood itself was created in a similar fashion, when Devika Rani and Himanshu Rai moved away from the Calcutta-based film industry to set up Bombay talkies. But that is a different video altogether. Anyway, as audience, all we can do right now is wait and hope for things to get better. This is definitely a rough patch, but this too shall pass. Or maybe not. Never mind.